Hello everyone and welcome to our book club. Today we are joined by Jay. I think Jay needs very little introduction. She's written over 21 books. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to start by talking about your latest book, The Wrong Number, Right Woman. I've read today that it just won Elite Gold Award. So can you tell us a little bit about the book and what inspired you to write it?
Mm-hmm. I always call it my anti-corona, anti-pandemic novel because I was just starting to write it when the pandemic and the lockdowns hit us, and I felt like, okay, I need something that cheers me up every day and where there's not so much drama and everything is positive. And so this is really like a feel-good novel, and it's about Danny, and she's a shy butch character who is having like a normal, modest life. She's a cashier and she helps raise her niece. And she's too shy to really talk to women. And one day she gets an accidental text message from a woman who is 10 years younger than she is and much more outgoing and witty and pretty much her exact opposite. And they, instead of just saying, oh, sorry, you have the wrong number, they kind of start talking and they have this instant connection. And the problem is just that Eliza thinks that she's straight. It was based on a tweet I had seen like a few months earlier and then forgotten about it. There was this young woman, I think in the US, who took a picture of herself in her, I think, a prom dress, and she was buying or looking for a prom dress. And she sent the photo to, she thought, her best friend and wanted her opinion on the dress. And she had the wrong number and sent it to a complete stranger who texted back. And it was just like a cute feel-good story because he and his like 5 kids texted back and we're all like, yes, this is the dress.
It's lovely.
And I thought, if something like that happens just with 2 women who fall in love, that would be like a really fun idea. So that was I combined this text I had seen on Twitter with this, okay, I need something that makes me and my readers feel good.
And congratulations on the award. Actually, I should have said that earlier. So you must be
Thank
really
you.
proud.
That's a very cute story. And so will we see again those 2 characters? Because often your book are interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep track of that?
I love having characters who had their book in the past, whose book I've already written. And then I want to know, okay, how are they doing? Like maybe a year later, are they still happy with each other? And maybe what's become of their professional life, or have they moved in with each other, or what's going on? So, and I know my readers love that too, checking in with old friends. And so for Danny and Eliza, there's a free short story that takes place after the book. So for everyone who has read Wrong Number, Right Woman, they can go on my website and there's in the menu is a tab called Free Books. And one of the free books is an anthology where I think 8 of the Ilva authors have a free story in there, and it's called Glimpses because it gives us glimpses into the lives of characters from some of our most popular books. And one of the short stories is about Danny and Eliza. And they will also have an appearance in the book I just finished writing, Chemistry Lessons. They are friends with the main couple of the new book. Oh, did you want me to say something about the second part of your question about how I keep track?
Yes.
I don't have a very good memory, so I need to write everything down. And I work in a software called Scrivener, where I create character profiles so that I don't forget, okay, were her eyes green or blue, or how tall is she, and where do her parents live? And so if I go back years later and I write a sequel or a short story for a character from an older book, I can look it up.
How many manuscripts do you write each year?
It depends on how long the manuscript is and what else is going on. It's usually 1 or 2. This year it's probably only going to be the one novel and maybe a short story, because I also translate my own books into German, and that also takes up part of my time.
Do you do the translation yourself?
Mm-hmm. I think I'm a little bit possessive when it comes to my writing, and it's pretty hard to hand it over. And if it's my native language. So I feel like, okay, I think the best translator would be me. If it's a language I don't speak, okay, then someone else can do it. But for my German books, I like doing it myself.
Do you have to change the nuances when you're translating because they don't come across if you did a literal translation?
Yeah. I think the best translation is always the one that doesn't stick too closely to the words, because, for example, in my books, a lot of I like writing dialogue that is like the characters banter back and forth, or they tease each other, and it's witty. And humor in particular is often based on wordplay, or on cultural concepts. And let's say something like, oh, she's family. In English means, oh, she's gay. But if you say that in German, it doesn't work because it doesn't have that double meaning. So if a character says something like that, you have to translate it completely different to make the same joke, or to achieve the same emotional effect. You can't just translate the words directly. You have to think, okay, what did the author mean with that, and then have to translate the meaning. And since I'm the author, I know what I meant and what effect I wanted to achieve, and that's why I think that I'm the best translator for my own work. Not because like my language skills are superior to any translator. We have fantastic translators, but no one knows my characters and what effect I was trying to achieve as well as I do. So
Do you plan to do translation in other language like French, Italian, or Spanish?
I've had one book translated into Italian, Departure from the Script. I can't tell you the title, I don't speak Italian. And I have one book, Under a Falling Star, that was translated in French by a French publisher who bought the license from Ilva. They did a great job with it. Translations are very expensive because you don't just have to pay the translator and pay the person really fairly, because it's a lot of work. You also have to pay an editor, or at least an editor, and a proofreader. So for some languages, the market is just not big enough to even recover the costs. So we're not planning a lot of translations, but I have a book, at least one in French and one in Italian, and I'm very happy about that.
When you do your audiobooks, do you get to say in who the narrator is?
Yeah, at least I can say, oh no, I don't want her. I can say, look, I want Epi Graydon or I want Angela Daw, but a lot of the time they are busy, and so we have to see who else is available. But I can say who I want, and then it depends if I get her or not. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite character?
Oh, yeah, that's like asking a parent who her favorite child is. I have a lot of favorites, and it changes over time. Like if I just finish working on a book, then I might still feel like Benny from Wrong Number, Right Woman is really like a sweetheart, or Luke from Backwards to Oregon. And I know Luke is also a favorite for many of my readers. Yeah, or Holly from Perfect Rhythm. Yeah, so I can't just narrow it down for one. If I have like 5, that's already narrowed down because I have 21 books, so 42 characters.
So I'll ask a slightly easier version of that question. Is there a book you've really enjoyed writing and that's always stayed with you?
I enjoyed writing all of them, or I wouldn't have written them. I don't believe in writing something that I'm not passionate about, because it takes me like at least like 6 months to research, to write, to edit, and I don't want to work on something for 6 months that I don't enjoy. Yeah, so I'm kind of, I have some maybe that I'm not quite as close as with others, and some that I bonded even more. But if I go back and reread one of my books, it's always like there was a pandemic and you haven't seen friends for a long time, and then you go back and you meet them again, and it's always like a really good feeling. Yeah.
We feel the same as well when we read your books.
Thank you.
If you look around in the book world or the TV world, is there a story somewhere that you're like, I wish I would have written that?
Not really. I try not to compare myself to other writers or script writers. If I wish I would have written that, then I just would have, you know. Yeah, so I try not to compare myself. And there are some brilliant other authors out there. But I try to be my own writer and I just write the books that I want to read, you know. That's how I started out as a writer, like writing for myself and the kind of stories I want to read because they weren't there when I was growing up. So
In your latest book, Eliza, she starts off thinking she's straight, but then she realizes she is bisexual. And then you have other characters you've written who are like pansexual or sexual. So, how important do you think it is that authors try to include diversity in their books?
it's very important to me personally. I can talk for other authors, but I mean, if I look at my own circle of friends, it's very diverse. And it's not everyone is a lesbian, and I have straight friends. Obviously, I don't want to write about straight people, but I have bisexual friends, pansexual friends, friends who prefer the term queer, friends who are like, I'm just myself, I don't need any labels, friends who are lesbians, so friends who are asexual, demisexual, so and I think that's just our life is very diverse. If we are lucky enough, it's very diverse, and I want my books to reflect that kind of diversity because I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think because everyone deserves and needs that kind of representation and positive representation in books. And so that's what I try to write.
So that's bringing me to one of my questions. Do you consume queer content or do you just create it?
Oh, I of course also consume it. There are phases when I'm just working on a first draft of a book where I don't read, so I'm not accidentally copying anything that I read, and I'm not influenced, and also because it just takes up all of my time to writing then. But that's like 2 months or so where I'm really just in my writing cave and not doing a lot of other things. But then if I'm in between books, I really catch up. I always find it strange if a writer doesn't read or doesn't consume stories. I mean, there's other ways to consume stories because these stories, they kind of fill up the creative well. And I'm still an avid reader. I still enjoy it. And of course, I'm also a fan of movies and TV shows. And if there's a good show with a queer representation, then yeah, sooner or later I will watch it.
So, as the author of over 21 books, can you distill down in like the essence of what's important in a book that would actually make it either stand out or appeal to readers? What do you think needs to be in a book so that it actually says to the reader, oh, read me?
Mm-hmm. To me, it's about the characters, especially if you write romance. Your readers need to fall in love with the characters too. If the characters feel like two-dimensional and they are not really real to the reader, then it's just a book. You read it, you enjoy it, but then you put it aside and you read the next one and you forget about it. I think what really stands out to me as a reader is like the characters that I keep thinking about them. Even I close the book and I'm like, wow, they were just so great. Like I would want to be friends with them, and they're a great fit. They help each other grow, and they are even better together than they are by themselves. I think that makes, for me, that's the core ingredients of a great romance novel or of any great book.
And is there a particular reason why romance is always a part of your book? I mean, it's not always a general fiction. Sometimes you go in supernatural, but there's always a love story.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular reason for that?
Yeah. First of all, it's what I enjoy reading most, so it's what I'm writing too. And I think like this whole process of getting to know a new person and building that trust and opening up and falling in love, I think that's pretty much the most human experience that we can have, and it reveals so much about the character. And I mean, I'm a psychologist. I gave up the job 8 years ago, but I still have the education for psychologists, and I enjoy getting to know people. And I think that a romance allows me to get these two characters to connect more than, let's say, a mystery novel, where it's more about the external plot and not so much about the psychology.
Would you ever consider writing a book which was open-ended, where you didn't actually have a happily ever after ending?
No.
You wouldn't do that to your readers ever.
No. I mean, there can still be aspects. I was just saying that to a writer I was mentoring, because I felt like she tied it up. Everything was a little bit too perfect, and I think happy ending doesn't have to mean everything is perfect, but maybe they still have some problems with family members or in their jobs. But as a romance reader, I want to believe that no matter what life throws at these two people, they will face it together. And that's for me a happy ending. It doesn't need to be like sugar-coated, everything is perfect, but life is too depressing. I mean, turn on the news, there's enough depressing news on there. And so I want my readers to know every time they pick up one of my books, they will get that happy feeling in the end. And otherwise, it would be too depressing for me too.
Could you name some of the people or genre that influence your writing?
Style-wise, I can't really name any writer who I'm like, okay, this is who I modeled myself after. There are people who I enjoy reading and that I admire because they consistently put out really good work, where I'm like, okay, I know I can turn off that inner editor when I'm reading one of their books. But I don't really have writing heroes. There's a lot of people on whose shoulders I stand because as queer women, they came before me and they made it possible for me to make a living as a writer, and I'm grateful for them all. But there's not really one that stands out where I'm like, okay, this is my writing hero. I modeled myself after them, my career or my style. I try to just be myself.
You wear multiple hats, so you're a writer, you're an editor, you also mentor for GCLS, and you translate as well. So how do you avoid burnout? How do you does it ever feel like it gets a bit too much?
It is a lot, and it takes up it's like more than a full-time job. So I think if it would be like any normal job, it would be like not allowed by law to work that many hours. That's what happens if you make your passion and your biggest hobby into your day job. Then it's hard to find a good life-work balance, especially during the pandemic when you don't really have anywhere to go. Usually I take like a vacation during the winter where I'm like 3 weeks somewhere at the beach, at the ocean, and I go hiking, but I'm not this year, not last year. So yeah, it is a little bit of a struggle for me to take time away. And so I hope to finish the revisions for chemistry lessons and then to take some time off because, yeah, I don't want to end up with a burnout. But yeah, I don't feel that, that I'm missing out on anything because like creating books and helping other people create books, it's a really huge part of my life. And I don't feel like I'm missing life because this is really a big part of my life. Yeah.
Was there a trigger or something that made you choose 8 years ago to say, okay, I'm quitting the day job and I'm doing this writing stuff full time and just taking a leap of faith?
Mm-hmm. It was more like a slow process because I'm more of a conservative person. I'm not like a huge risk taker, and you don't grow up thinking, oh, I'm going to be a writer one day. I always wanted to be one, but it wasn't really a lot of encouragement because like you have this mental image of like a starving artist, and very few people actually are able to make a living writing, and especially in such a small niche genre like writing WLW fiction is like maybe 20 people or so, or maybe more like now with self-publishing, but it's not really that many people who are able to do it. So I was always very careful and thought, I don't know. And it was actually more a couple of really good and supportive friends who said like, yeah, you should really take that step. And once I switched publishers and I joined Ilva in 2012, it was starting to look like, okay, maybe it actually isn't just like a pipe dream, it's actually possible. And then, I made plans and I put together like a financial cushion because there's no steady income as a writer. It's not something that you should just leap into. You really have to plan it and think, what if I have writer's block? And then you have to pay your bills. So I made the decision really over a long time and very carefully.
If you could go back in time and rewrite one of your book, would you do it? And if so, which one? Would it be a different book too?
I think it would probably not change so much the story itself, but more like I try to improve my craft all the time, even if it's just a little thing. If you stop learning, then you are better off to stop writing, I think. And if I reread old books, I'm still like, oh yeah, I really like these characters and this story is really good and the scene is funny. But you always see little things like, you should have taken that adverb out here, and there's a comma missing here. And it's like at this point of my career, I republished all of my books in 2012. So all of the really bad mistakes I already got to take out, thank God. But there's always like, a book is never done, even when it's published, it's never really done. You could polish it forever. So maybe it's good that you don't get to do it. And otherwise you would never start a new story and you would try to get the old ones even more perfect.
Can we talk new books? So you have got chemistry lessons in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some sneak peeks and tell us when we can expect to read it?
Mm-hmm. It's the first Friends to Lovers novel that I have ever written. And I define Friends to Lovers as the characters already know each other when they meet. So it's not like they meet as strangers and then they become friends and then they fall in love, which is more like, to me, a slow burn romance. But these two characters, Regan and Kylie, they already know each other pretty well. They have been best friends since kindergarten, and basically they grew up with each other. And so it's a very different story, and they have this backstory with each other, and all of their friends and their family members, they think, wow, you would be perfect for each other. But the two of them, they're like, oh no, we're just great friends. And they insist they have no chemistry, and so to finally get their friends to shut up and stop bothering them about it, they agree, okay, we will go on 3 dates with each other, and then we will prove there's no chemistry, and then everyone will shut up. But of course, it doesn't quite turn out that way, and they start seeing each other in a new light. Yeah, it will probably be out we are planning on August right now.
Oh, nice. Back to school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully back to some
Exactly.
kind of normality as well, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're German. Do you write your draft for your idea in German or in English?
In English, everything is in English. I don't even think in German when I'm writing. It wouldn't work. Like I said, translating is just something completely different. All my research, all my character notes is all in English.
Well, like if you're sleeping and you have a dream and you're working up in the middle of the night, you already switch in English, just like that?
Sometimes, yeah. Most of the times I don't really remember my dreams because I have aphantasia, where I don't know if you heard about it. It's like you have a blind mind's eye, like you cannot create images in your head.
Okay.
Like, when you're doing a relaxation technique and you're like picture yourself at the beach. I can't do it because I have no mental images.
Is that making writing harder?
You would think so, but I mean, this is my normal, you know, like if you had to do it, probably it would be harder, but like I have different strategies. Like okay, this is funny. I cannot imagine how a person's mind work. I think my brain would explode. Like I always thought this is how everyone is. No one like counting sheep. This is just something people say. They're not actually seeing sheep, are they? And then I found out that yes, some people do. Like they envision their characters like with faces and everything. And I'm like, what? People can create images in their brains? Seriously? And they're like, yes, I see this like a movie. And I'm like, what? And I cannot do it. So just how my brain is wired. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Very.
If you had to go for a vacation with your characters from your books, which place would you go? Which place would you choose?
It would have to be someone introverted. Maybe Danny, she's nice and quiet. Yeah, maybe I would take her and Eliza. And if I need some alone time, I can send them off. Because, of course, I would have to invite them as a couple. So I would take them some place at the beach because I love the ocean. Like, I want to go back to Croatia. I spent every summer there as a teenager. Until the war broke out. And I haven't been back since, and I always wanted to go back, so that's where I would take them.
Is there a part that you prefer when you're writing? Editing, drafting, or choosing the cover, or whatever?
Everything. I pretty much enjoy everything, even like the editing that most people like really hate. I really enjoy it. The cover creation, not so much. That's too visual for me. I'm not the visual person. So I'm always glad if we have found a good cover and that part is done, yeah. But all the rest is really, really fun, yeah.
What's the hardest thing you've had to research for your books? What's been difficult to research?
For the roommate arrangement. One character is a stand-up comedian. And I did so much, and you think, oh, it's a fun job, you know, and you think it's easy. But actually there's so much behind it, and writing comedy is so hard. And I had to write a bit of comedy because I show Steph on stage and she delivers part of her comedy routine. So I had to write a little bit of it, and it's really hard. It's even if you're a writer, it's not the same as writing a book. So I always respected people who go on stage and bear themselves to make other people laugh. But after that, my respect was through the roof.
And I think it is one of the hardest jobs, as you say. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of also probably a bit of self-doubt as well, because you don't know if people are going to find things funny. So it must be so hard to put yourself out there and hope that people actually laugh at your jokes.
Yeah. I think a lot of comedians, like a lot of writers, struggle with self-worth issues and depression and anxiety, and it's definitely not the easiest job to have.
So how many books ahead do you plan? So if you've got chemistry lessons done, have you already got the next book or the next couple of books planned?
I know the next one that I will write is a short story for the Oregon series, because it's this year, it's the 170th anniversary of them arriving in Oregon. And that's one of my most popular books. So I said, okay, I'm in the mood to revisit them and check in with them, and maybe write a short story about the missing years in between the first book, Backwards to Oregon, and the second novel, Hidden Truths, and to show a little bit about how life treated them in the early years in Oregon. And after that, I'm not 100% sure, because I have so many, like at least 5 different books that I know I want to write, and I'm not yet sure about, okay, will I go with this one first or with that one first? I will see, but I always have at least 5 story ideas that I know I will write, and I want to write a next book in my Shapeshifter series. I want to write a book about Dr. Lucy Hamilton Sharp from Shaken to the Core. She needs her own book, and there are at least 5 more story ideas. So yeah, when it's time to make a decision, I will see what I'm in the mood for.
You write a couple of books set in the US. I remember one in Germany. Do you go to the place you want to write about? Do you do research? How do you process for that kind of thing? And do you favor US because it's a bigger market?
Okay. I always try to go wherever I'm writing about, especially if it's a place where I've set more than one book. So I've been to Portland, for example, where several of my books take place. And of course, Paper Love is set in my hometown. So I didn't have to do that much research because I know the city really well. There were a couple books, like for example, I wrote Backwards to Oregon before I even set foot in the US. Plus, it's historical fiction, so a lot of the places look very different right now. But for example, for Shaken to the Core, which is set in San Francisco during the times of the great earthquakes and fires in 1906, I went to San Francisco and I went to all of the museums and I walked the hills to do as much research as possible. So I think it's always a plus if you can do it. Right now I can't. So you can do a lot of it online. And also what I'm always doing is I always look for local beta readers, or if the character has a certain job or certain hobby that is a huge part of the plot, I always make sure I have beta readers who can double check that I didn't make any mistakes, so that it's as authentic and as realistic as I can make it. And I mostly set my books in the US because I enjoy learning new things. I always pick a topic and a character who isn't like basically me, and because I enjoy, like, wow, what's a comedian's life like, or what is it to live with only one eye? How is that? Or what is it like to live with MS, or things like that? And then I research and I do a lot of research, a lot more research than I would probably need, to really step into the shoes of this character and to portray her as realistic as I can. And it's not so much that I don't enjoy books that are set in Germany, but it's more like, the grass is always greener on the other side, and I want to write about things that are new to me and that I can learn. And I'm a bit of a information junkie, I always say, and I learn something new with every book. I had a ER doctor where I learned about heart conditions, and that's really part of the fun for me. So setting books in the US is really, I always learn something new, and I learn more than if I would set a book in Germany.
So when you're writing, do you have an ideal writing environment that you create to inspire you?
I can write pretty much everywhere, but to have a nice writing routine, I mostly write where you see it right now in my office. And this is the biggest room in my apartment. And so I have this huge L-shaped desk where I can spread out my notes and just leave everything and come back to it the next day. And I put on headphones. Sometimes I forget to put on music, but the headphones have to be there. And then I start writing.
Talking about hobbies, you love to collect stationery, love to collect fountain pens. Can you show us some of your favorites?
Yeah, I prepared some. And this is actually like a nice combination of the book I just finished, chemistry lessons, because the pen stand is actually a test tube holder that chemists use. And this is just like a small sample of the pens I have inked up now.
What's the one with the transparent, the second one, that's got a transparent cover, isn't it?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That looks like a chemistry test tube experiment.
Yeah, this one, like you can see the ink inside. Right now it has blue ink. it's fun if you edit with it and you put in a red ink. It's nice to scare the authors.
And do you have a different notebook for every book that you write?
I use up about 2 or 3 notebooks for every book I write. Yeah, this is the one. The cover
lovely.
is the same for everyone. I put I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, we can see it.
I made the layouts
Oh, cool.
for
Okay.
their apartments, so that I'm not like putting one in the kitchen and describing the places wrong.
That's great.
Yeah.
And a pen nerd question: do you prefer a cartridge or how do you say it in English? Like when you pump the ink.
It's called a piston filler.
Piston filler. Okay.
I like both, but if I'm traveling, I use the cartridge fillers because otherwise traveling with ink can be tricky otherwise.
Does traveling inspire your writing? Have you ever been to a place and thought, oh, I want to set a book in this place?
I do it the other way around. I think, I would like to go there, and then I can combine kind of. I always when I'm flying to the US, for example, I combine like a writing conference with doing research and maybe visiting friends. So yeah, but traveling is definitely something I miss. Being at home is nice. I'm not suffering like some other people do. I do pretty well. I live with a roommate, so it's not like I'm getting bored at home. But traveling is definitely something I'm looking forward to.
Do you have any advice for new writers?
I have a lot. Mostly I would say maybe 3 things. First of all, writing is a craft, and that is good news because it means you can learn it. There's so many sources out there. There are books, there are blogs about writing. And so take the time before you publish a book and learn about all the essentials of the craft. Things like point of view and show don't tell. Like these are techniques that anyone can learn, and your readers will be really grateful if you take the time to do it. And then get some feedback. There are beta readers, there are editors that you can send your draft to and then listen to what they are saying. And the real magic in writing is in the revisions, not in the first draft. So to try to improve your writing skills with that feedback. The third piece would be you have to find out what works for you. Some writing advice is pretty general and true for everyone, like learn the craft, that's true for everyone. But things like you shouldn't edit while you write. It's good advice for some people, but it doesn't work for others. Or are you a blotter or are you a pantser? Everyone has to find what process works for them, and that's where you can't really compare yourself to others. Some people are fast writers and they write 5,000 words every day. I wouldn't be able to do that. And so, find your process and don't compare yourself to others so much, but take the advice and take the feedback and then see what you can do with it.
When you write your first draft, do you already share it with some people? Do you already ask pointers, or did you wait to have something complete, then rework it?
I always share chapter by chapter. I don't want to wait until the last chapter and then find out that the character isn't likable or something that is at the core of the book doesn't work. I have a lot of beta readers, like usually I have per book around 10 or 12. It's a lot of feedback. I would not advise other people, especially if you're a beginner, it's a lot of feedback. But they all specialize in different areas, and I find it all helpful. So I get a lot of feedback, and I revise as I go. When I finish the first draft, it's really a lot more than a first draft. It's basically pretty polished already.
So your books always get great reviews. But my question is, do you read your reviews, and what happens? How do you deal with a negative review?
I always read it. I think it's not good advice to tell writers not to read their reviews. If a writer is sensitive and it really would drive them into a deep depression or would destroy their entire week, then have someone else read it, and see what I read especially the negative reviews, and I try to see if there's anything I can take from it. If it's just a review like, I don't like workplace romances and this was a workplace romance, okay, then obviously someone didn't read the blurb. Okay, there's nothing I could take from there. But if it's something like the ending felt rushed, then I go back and think, okay, is this like just one opinion and everyone else thought it was wonderful? Or is this more of a pattern and this is something I need to take into consideration for the next books? There are readers who read hundreds of books every year, way more than I can read because I spend my time writing. And they know a lot about writing, they know what they like, and I think there's something to be learned from readers' feedback. And if it's constructive criticism, of course I read it. It's very valuable. Sometimes it goes under your skin. There's some feedback that is not so constructive, and it might even be a little bit personal. I keep positive, really positive fan emails that really touched me. And if I'm having a super bad day or I get feedback that gets under my skin, I might open that folder and read some positive ones just to balance it out a little bit.
I think it's a great strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Does it get easier over time at all? Do you sort of can you distance yourself a bit more from the reviews over time, or does it still feel as personal as in the first book?
If it ever doesn't feel personal at all, I think then, I care about these books and about these characters, but I think it gets a little bit easier over time to handle the criticism. It's not like I'm getting that much criticism. That sounds like I'm getting tons, but I think as time goes on, I've become better at trusting in my skills and just to getting better at sorting the feedback, what is really valid feedback and what is one opinion and everyone else thinks differently, and what is something I can just dismiss as really, this is like a person, obviously it wasn't a book for them, and what is something I really should take care of in the future.
As a woman writer who write about women and in queer fiction, did you often got haters, people who just review your book because of who you are or what you write, no matter what it is?
Not a lot. Most of the feedback I get is really very positive. I recently got one feedback. I don't even know where she got my book. Sometimes I do promotions where I'm giving away a free book, and I think maybe she got the book there. And she sent an email about what filth it is, and it wasn't erotic or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was obviously a homophobic background. It's just two women together. Obviously, it must be filth.
Oh my God. Okay.
These emails are very easy for me to dismiss. They don't get under my skin at all. Nothing you can do about people.
Not worth spending the time worrying about. Yeah,
definitely not.
And the irony of that is so many lesfic books are really good stories as well. So if you didn't have that bias in your mind, you could actually enjoy a really good story, but people don't always want to do that.
Yeah, a lot of them do. I get feedback from straight readers who were like, wow, this is the first romance between two women I've read, and it's like, wow, it was really good. Can you recommend some more? And thankfully, I have a feeling people are getting more open-minded, but not everyone.
Oh, yeah. The This or That is just me pitching 2 or 3 ideas against one and against another, and you just pick the right one for you. No explanation, no nothing, just fire question. Oh, here. Okay. So, This or That. Rapid fire question. Music, silence.
Music.
Cocktail, mocktail.
Mocktail.
Day, night.
Night.
Friends, family, lovers.
Friends, and if I can explain, because My friends
Okay.
are my chosen family.
Okay. Socks or blankets?
Blanket,
Vanilla or chocolate?
chocolate.
Femme, butch?
Can I say neither?
Okay, you can.
I don't really think in labels. I mean, not for myself and some of my characters maybe, but mostly people are people.
Spice or mild?
Spice,
Theater or cinema?
cinema,
Club, bar or restaurant?
restaurant,
Early bird or night hall?
night owl.
That's it. Thank you.
That was fun.
Thank you very much for today, Jay. It was lovely talking to you.
To you too.
Do you have any parting words for our readers?
Yeah, thank you to everyone for reading my books, and I hope you all make it through the rest of the pandemic and you stay healthy.